Here's the tale of the tape between these two. Now, Paul has had size advantages in most of his fights to date, but not this time. Silva, taller, weighs a bit more, has a longer reach, and he is conditioned to go the distance. Should be a great fight between these two. Let's hear what our fight guys think. Let's go to Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell in Arizona.
The drama has been somewhat tame during fight week for the build to Saturday Showtime pay-per-view, Jake Paul Anderson Silva. But Luke Thomas, if there was any drama, it was an interview from Anderson Silva in September where he mentioned maybe getting knocked out or knocked down twice. Arizona Athletic Commission did their testing and reviews. We're all set for fight night.
Yeah, I don't really know what it is. There was Anderson Silva telling the media he was joking, also saying that it was maybe a language barrier issue. He was saying knocked down, not knocked out. Obviously, if he got knocked out twice in training, even if it's going to go ahead, that would be detrimental to his cause because your resistance to any kind of punching would be very, very minimal. So that wouldn't be good for him either way, but we shall see it. Listen, what you have to remember, and you know this and I know this, from covering Anderson Silva for a long time, he does tend to play games on occasion. He tends to play with the media, play with narrative, so it could all just be that. But to your point, the commission here in Arizona did what they could to look into it. They seem satisfied with it. We're a go for Saturday.
Well, look, this is not your typical big boxing pay-per-view event. Obviously, the 25-year-old Jake Paul, 5-0, the 47-year-old Anderson Silva, arguably the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. He's still got something left. We'll find out how much, but the odds have shifted back and forth. But we talked to Jake Paul this week. He kind of feels like win or lose, he's already won. This is the toughest fight without question of his career up to this point. Is that a right thought process coming into your most dangerous fight, saying, hey, if I win or lose, just taking it, just being here is a dream come true?
Well, I mean, he's not wrong, right? He did manage to attract Anderson Silva to box him. If you look at the other guys in YouTube boxing, what they're all doing is they're still boxing one another. It's all this Twitch guy versus this TikTok guy or whatever the various permutations may be. A guy like Jake has escalated through fighting Ben Askren for whatever that was worth, and 2 times against Woodley. And now the great Anderson Silva, even at 47 years old, is it an achievement that he's been able to escalate this far? On some level, yes, it quite obviously is. There's not a lot of other guys from Jake's background who could have done it. In fact, I couldn't name a single other one you would think about in that same context. At the same time, if he is to build on this Jake Paul versus MMA feud he has built, quite lucratively I might add, but if he is to build on it, it is an absolute must-win on Saturday. And in fact, BC, I'm sure you would agree, a devastating loss would be a huge hindrance to any future paychecks like this.
Jake Paul has disrupted the typical boxing market, most often with what he's done in the ring, but he's also a promoter. He's now said, you know, I'm not afraid of a defeat because I know I'll be in boxing forever in some form, but to keep the train moving, to get future fights with guys like Nate Diaz will be in attendance, George St. Pierre who will be part of the broadcast. These are the fights you have to win and look good. But it's not just Jake Paul and Anderson Silva pulling crossover interests into this. How about former Pittsburgh Steelers great running back, 30-year-old Le'Veon Bell, who's fresh off a one-punch knockout of Adrian Peterson, his fellow former running back, but now he's taken on retired but still very active Uriah Hall, the ex-UFC middleweight contender. Experience gap from a combat standpoint is very wide between these two. How dangerous is this for Le'Veon Bell come Saturday?
It's got to be massively dangerous. I mean, we're talking about a guy, Le'Veon Bell, who, are you worried about his athleticism? No. It's not a super long fight. It's just 4 rounds. That's not that's not nothing, but that's not the end of the world. Okay, so it's a shorter time frame. And I'm sure he is going to do whatever he can to prepare himself. But as you indicated, the difference in combative experience is a lifetime. Quite literally, it's a lifetime. A guy like Uriah Hall has been doing this since he was a young man, and now he's actually all the way through his MMA career and in this latter stage of whatever this is going to be. Listen, let's just state it plainly. There's no good reason why Uriah Hall should lose. That doesn't mean he won't. That doesn't mean this is not a little bit weird, a little bit unusual, a little hard to predict. And a guy like Uriah Hall, who I think took this fight on relatively late notice, isn't cutting a ton of weight. What will that do to his readiness? And also, he is supposed to go in there and just whip up on this guy. Again, you would think that's what's going to happen. Could there be a case for a guy like Bell surviving and having a moral victory? Or is Uriah Hall just going to go in there and stomp on him? It's also a weird one. Again, I will say, BC, Uriah Hall shouldn't lose this, but if he's not taking it as seriously as he needs to, we don't have any indication that's necessarily the case. We're just going to have to find out. Could be Who knows come Saturday night?
This will be a 4-round heavyweight bout. Uriah Hall fought at 185 middleweight in his MMA days, moving up just a bit. But the real focus is on what is this main event going to look like. It'll be 8 rounds. It'll be contested at a catch weight of 187 pounds. The real theme as far as Jake Paul's exponential growth in terms of the improvement he's shown, but also the danger of the opponents is one thing he has done is feasted on smaller guys, older guys. No one's questioning that whether Anderson Silva is old. The question is how much does he have left in the tank? But from a size standpoint, Anderson Silva was a former middleweight champion at 185, was 3-1 when moving up to light heavyweight at 205 pounds. So this is the real test for Jake Paul. So at the end of the day, Luke Thomas, who wins on Saturday and why?
The odds can say what they want. People can say what they want. I think the reality is this, BC, you would probably agree. Anyone who is very confident feels like they really know what's going to happen here. I tend to think that that's just really not a genuine way of approaching this. This is very hard to know what the reality is. What kind of durability does Anderson Silva have at 47? I'm not really sure. What kind of upside does Jake Paul have at this stage of whatever he's trying to do in boxing? I'm not really sure. So based on the information that we have, I'm going to ride with Anderson Silva. I just think he can put punches together in ways that no previous opponent has against Jake Paul. He's got good elusiveness. He is obviously one of the most creative strikers we've seen. And against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., you just saw him able to confuse him, set traps for him, land on him with, honestly, creativity in the latter stage of their contest. Jake Paul has just never fought anyone like this. The odds can say what they want, BC. I think Anderson Silva gets his hand raised on Saturday night.
Father Time is undefeated, but Anderson Silva has made the transition to professional boxing and has looked good doing so. We'll find out, though, Saturday night. Showtime pay-per-view from Greater Phoenix, Arizona. Enjoy the fights.
All right, Luke Thomas, Brian Campbell. Talking about Paul Silva coming up on Saturday night. Paul minus 230. You saw the odds there. Silva plus 190. Luke's riding with him. Now, they'll have, of course, a full breakdown of this fight coming up on Morning Combat. You can download and follow the podcast wherever you get your preferred podcast audio.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.